So why are we here? Another person in the lobby. There we go. Let them in. So I'll let some of the New Zealand stats do some of the talking here. I will be referring to the recent report published by CERT-NZ. So for those that don't know, CERT-NZ is New Zealand's government initiative to help track cyber incidents or attacks within the business community. So it was established in 2016. They provide real-time information on cyber attacks affecting New Zealand business community. So each quarter, they release a report of what has occurred across the New Zealand business community. So let's have a look at some of the stats that's just been published. I think it came out about I don't know, two weeks ago, and it was pretty interesting. So according to CERT-NZ's recent published report, which is on Q4 calendar year quarters for them, there was a 1,030% increase in ransomware reports from the previous quarter. So that is massive. $6.6 million in direct financial loss was reported in Q4. So 100% increase from Q3. There was 568 scams and frauds reported, up to 16%, up 16% from quarter 3. So there's only one way this whole thing is going, and that's up, unfortunately. So we need to basically have this conversation about preventative measures. So the key thing here is prevention. So now we've set the scene. We're going to be powering through these 15 ways. If you're unsure of what your business is doing in a particular area, I just recommend writing down on a Word document or a piece of paper and speaking to your IT partner or your internal IT delegate if you've got any questions, because there might be a few fairly technical pieces that might be a little bit over your head. So just write that down, have a conversation with someone that might understand a little bit more about that particular area. So let's roll. So first one is cybersecurity audit. So this doesn't actually have to be a full-scale cybersecurity audit. This is just about being appropriate to your business. This may simply be working with your IT partner or bringing in an IT third party to review the landscape. This could be simply conducting an assessment, so asking the right questions on your business's password policy, understanding your business's stance and use of multi-factor authentication, what backups you have in place, and how that's being conducted as well. So it's really just going through a good, solid checklist of what particular security measures are in place. It'll be kind of similar to the 15 ways, but there'll probably be more like 100 things that we need to have a few questions about. So, however, depending on your business size, cyber maturity and appetite for risk, this could be at the level of like a full-scale penetration test and sort of white hacking, if you will, in order to make sure your network is robust and able to prevent external threats. So it's really just about being appropriate to your size of business. Cool. So we did, well, we've done quite a few actually, but this was a bit of feedback we got from Beth Sheehan Trust last year. They said it made us think much wider than our antivirus or firewall, and identified documentation that had been lacking that we need to develop. So Miriam also said, I can see how implementing some of these recommendations could help improve employee morale, which is a really important part of what we stand for. So she's also asking we do another security audit in 6 months' time, so we can measure their success and measure their progress. It's very important to do. Cool.
Callum, if I can just mention.
Absolutely.
Here, a lot of people think that it's larger companies that are that the attackers go after, but the figure locally is 71% of compromised businesses and attacked businesses have less than 100 staff members. So because smaller businesses are easier to leapfrog into larger businesses. So a lot of you on this call will be fitting into that attack vector. So that's just something to be aware of.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kurt. So number 2, spam filters. So last quarter it was listed as the second highest threat to business community. Generally, it's number 1 though. So I've been looking at these reports for just over a year now, and it's phishing and credential harvesting. Spam has always been number 1 until this past quarter, which malware has taken the lead. So good on you, malware. This is significantly difficult actually to get a hold of without impacting regular and safe traffic when it comes to emails. So those with Microsoft 365 E3 licenses, I believe, or E5 comes with Microsoft Defender, which certainly provides enterprise-grade spam filtering at an S&B level, which is fantastic. You can always add that Bitdefender on or whatever spam filter on to your 365 licensing at a very small cost, I believe, which is fantastic.
Just a comment there for the smaller customers, the Microsoft Business Premium licenses also include that enhanced spam filter.
Yeah,
so you get the standard issue with standard and the enhanced one with Business Premium.
Yeah. Awesome. So you'll want to be aware of what spam filter you have in place and the level of aggression it's also set at, so you can manually play around with that. This is the delicate dance we all have to balance. So it should be something that isn't static, but regularly reviewed. You know, how much spam's coming into our organization? Should we dial up the aggression, or, are we missing emails from customers? Should we need to dial it back a little bit? Awesome. Next one, number 3, powering through this. Cool. It's still a thing. Passwords, yes. It's getting easier, in my opinion, with the introduction of password managers and MFA, but it is still a thing. So only 40% of Kiwis say they always make sure their passwords are distinct, long, complex when signing into new websites or online services. After experiencing a cybersecurity incident, only 31% of Kiwis changed their password on an important online account, like online banking or email. So we've still got a little bit of work to do in this area. So things to do: try using a passphrase instead of a password. So instead of thinking of it as a password, just change that word to passphrase now. Banana, moose, chocolate, tree. That might be a little bit easier for you to remember. Or use a password manager. It's also a fun idea to test your password. So go to passwordmonster.com. You could do it right now. If you've got 2 screens, get on with it and check out how quickly your password could be hacked. It might force you to make a move quicker than you might have. Awesome. Powering through. Number 4. So cybersecurity awareness. So this is one on the rise, with the phishing and credential hacking being one of the highest ways to hack our businesses. We cannot simply have technology being the only method of stopping a breach. So MFA helps, complex passphrases help, firewalls help, but there is a level of user education that is being required, as it often is individuals that fall prey to attacks, just by clicking unsuspecting links or sending money to the wrong bank account after an invoice has been phished. So you need to ask yourselves, what is your business doing to educate your staff on the dangers of cyber threats? Do you conduct phishing campaigns to test your team and where they're at? Or is it just assumed that, most of the staff wouldn't click on something that looks a little bit dodgy? So cybersecurity training is something we're seeing an increased demand for, often pushed by insurance requirements, actually. These can be educational and easily consumed with the ability to measure progress, which is good. So you can start off, say, this month, and in 6 months' time have a report on how your team are going, how many clicks were made on the phishing attempt. You can track people's courses that you assign people to in order to increase their awareness and their education. It's just going to be a general part of people's onboarding experience over the next couple of years. So certainly something to consider. So quick few did you knows? So according to CertNZ, 1 in 5 small businesses will suffer a cyber breach this year. That's pretty interesting. Of all breaches happening to small and medium-sized, 81% of all breaches happen to small and medium-sized businesses. So I took this stat maybe 6 months ago, so it might have been updated. And 90% of all breaches could have been prevented with today's technology. So that's also interesting. Moving on, number 5. How are we going for time? We are good. Advanced endpoint detection and response agents. So think of this as the next evolution of antivirus. It is actually no longer adequate to just have antivirus in place. So let's read a little bit about what this is. What we call it EDR, Advanced Endpoint Detection and Response Agents. This protects your computer's data from malware, viruses, and cyber attacks with advanced endpoint security. So EDR agents protect against fileless and script-based threats and can even roll back ransomware attacks, which is quite good because malware, ransomware, it was the #1 threat and went up 1,030% on last quarter. So that's pretty incredible. It can help detect attacks that have gone unnoticed. You can set pre-configured rules in order for when specific software gets downloaded or unknown software gets downloaded. It can be sandboxed, which basically puts into a little box to be able to decide what's to be done with it before it infiltrates your system or your PC. So it really accelerates incident responses, and it's very much a proactive rather than a reactive preventative measure. Anything you want to add here, Kurt?
Just that from a personal perspective, we don't trust anything. So this is your last line of defense, but always take a zero trust approach on anything that is going on. So these are all nice to have, but once again, look at everything else that you're doing around it. So, and like Callum says, make sure that you have things in place. I've seen systems like this deployed and something's been blocked and someone's gone in and manually overridden it because they think it's good. But, we cannot protect against that.
No. Cool. All right. Number 6, multi-factor authentication. So what is this? So this is additional verification that's required when authenticating to business critical systems or devices. So actually considering the changes that were made to the Privacy Act in 2020, businesses risk being fined without adequate data security protection if they were breached. We're seeing a lot of prosecution happening in Australia. It's not so much happening here in New Zealand at this moment, but we generally follow Australia's lead on this stuff. So no doubt that's going to start infiltrating into New Zealand's the way of dealing with these things. So it's MFA. It's not actually simple authentication. So sometimes you may log into something and you just get an email to authenticate who you are. That's not what we're talking about. We're actually talking about using a different external device to authenticate who you are as an individual. So this is key for line of business software, so your CRMs or for things like payroll. Xero's made it mandatory to have MFA across their platform now, which is a good thing. There's still some loopholes around that. You can trust this device for 30 days and basically doesn't exist. So there's still a little bit of work to be done on that front. But it's actually mandatory for pretty much every cybersecurity insurance policy these days as well. So certainly something that needs to be considered. Anything you want to add here, Kurt, on the MFA front?
I think you've just gone back to your password slide where you don't ever trust the password. So passwords are not to be trusted. So certainly. Always use a second layer of authentication.
Yeah, massively increases your protection.
And as Callum has said, not all MFA platforms are created equal. So multi-factor versus two-factor versus insecure like text messaging. Text messaging can be compromised very easily. So never deploy that as your second level.
Yeah, great. Right, number 7, halfway through, everybody. Why we need regular patch management for operating systems, so your PCs, your servers, and applications. So first thing that comes to mind would be security. So patch management actually fixes vulnerabilities on your software and applications that are susceptible to cyber attacks. So that's across your servers, your PCs, your desktops, your switches, your access points that your Wi-Fi comes through, your firewalls, all require general regular patching. So firmware updates at operating level or an application level. Compliance, so becoming more necessary to adhere to internal compliance standards and insurance policies. So once again, you're less likely to get cyber security, cyber insurance if you don't have some form of process in place that's robust when it comes to patch management. And then there's general feature improvements and system uptimes, which is just a good thing. You might get a couple of bonus features if you upgrade, but that's more of an add-on. Security and compliance are generally the forerunners there. So it's a bit of a no-brainer here. Anything you want to add here, Kurt?
No, it's once again, it's a matter of process, and if these things are not automated or not handled by your IT company, then quite often they're missed and they are backdoors into your systems.
Yeah, nice. A couple of quotes from some work we've done over the past couple of years. So the security aspect is quite interesting. You don't realize how important it is until you have an incursion. We've certainly learned the hard way and learned a couple of times that the security of the network is important. So our good friend Bryce Howard, CEO of FIREWALL, said that to us about 3 years ago, and certainly done some good work with regards to patching a bunch of that stuff up. Number 8, dark web research. So I'm not sure how many of you expected this one to be on here. So this isn't for you to go on a wild goose hunt in the depths of the dark web. What we mean by this is talking to your IT department or delegate around what is on there, as in the dark web, specifically pertaining to your business. So often when an organization like LinkedIn or Canva gets hacked, credentials, usernames and passwords get sold on the dark web for phishing purposes. So people will use those credentials to try and log into your 365. If you don't have MFA, good night. It's all over. But if you do have MFA, you've got a lot more protection in place. The hope is here that the password that, say, Ted uses for Canva is the same one he uses for his 365. If they can test that and get in, it's good times for those individuals. So takeaway on this one is to talk to your IT department to see if they can find anything out. So they've got tools available. We've got tools to find such events and leaks. So a bit of a left-wing one, but certainly worth having a quick chat with your IT delegate on that. Okay, number 9, firewalls. Not just any firewalls, though. We're talking about unified threat management firewalls. They have services layered over the top of the firewall, all connected to each other. So Kurt certainly knows a lot more than I do around this area. So over to you, Kurt.
As Callum mentioned, it's all about the services. So a lot of devices are called firewalls, but it's what we do. And traditionally, a firewall is the border to your business, to your network. So we have to look and see who, what, where, and how is transversing that border. It's just like when you go through customs and they look at your passport. We want to inspect that it is Callum. He's allowed in the country, even though he's Australian, he does have a visa. So we check all of those things as you come in, and also as we go out, and we report on those and give visibility to those things. This is even more prevalent now with people working off-site, because you have your remote workers coming in through the firewall via VPNs or via other services. So you want to make sure that it is Callum accessing it from home or Kurt accessing it from home. You don't want that to be someone else. So have those processes in place and ensure that your border is protected as and when it needs to be. With people working offsite, you may not need the size of firewall for the throughput as you did previously with, say, 50 or 60 users in the office, but it still needs to be able to handle those remote users. So think about those things and think about how they all connect together. Once again, that's where your IT company comes in.
Awesome. Thanks, Kurt. Number 10, web gateway security. So internet security is generally a race against time. Cloud-based security detect web and email threats as they emerge on the internet and blocks them on your network within seconds before they reach the user. So Kurt, do you want to read through these, mate?
I can. So blind spots. So once again, secure socket layer. So that's how the web pages are encrypted. We see the traffic that's going through. So when Callum browses to Facebook when he's in the office, we can see everything that's going on behind that. And that's where the URL filtering and the DNS firewalling comes in as well. As you may have noticed here, all of these points are layers, and they're layers upon layers. And depending on how I'm going to set up an attack against the company, so if I'm going to set up a spear phishing attack, I'm going to layer my attack around these layers as well. So we have to look and stop them wherever we can. DNS firewalling. So this was just basically stopping someone from going to a web page. If I send you a link, that link is benign until you actually click on it. So we want to make sure we can block that link when it becomes malicious. So once again, make sure we have the layers in place to block these services and block these bad guys.
Cool. Thanks, mate. All right, number 11, mobile device security. So today's cyber criminals attempt to steal data or access your network by way of your employees' phones and tablets. So they're counting on you to neglect this piece of the puzzle, which is why it's certainly a layered piece. So a couple of things on why MDM could be a good idea for your business. So one, it increases productivity, so you can control unwanted apps, web access. You know, if you've got a bunch of people on their tablets just cruising on YouTube at home, might not be the best thing for productivity. You can use it for an inventory review or device tracking. So you're understanding where people are, which is quite a good thing. If you've got people driving around the place and you want to defer them to go somewhere else, you can actually look on an interface and say, okay, this is where they are. They'd be really close to this place. They might send this person rather than that person. So regular patching of the mobile and tablets as well. So a lot of that time it's left to people's own discretion of when to patch a device. Remote wiping, massive. So if, for example, you get something stolen, you know, there's a whole bunch of IP that people can get access to. You can actually wipe that remotely without any need of finding that device, which is very, very handy. Cool. So this isn't essential for every business, I will say, but it may be something appropriate to yours. Some businesses deal with IP data loss more than others, so this could be a consideration you make for the future. Cool. Number 12, SIEM log management. So simply summarizing this is your firewall logging what's happening day to day. When where people are going, their traffic, referral, if ever required. So if you ever get hacked in some way, is your firewall logging how that happened? You need to think about what reporting do you have set up on a monthly or quarterly basis to keep an understanding of where your team are spending their time or what they're trying to access as well. We've got a bunch of clients that have specific firewall reporting to understand, is their employees trying to access stuff during work time that's probably not appropriate. So your IT partner will generally have alerting set up wherever there's a potential threat. However, it really depends on what the services that business is consuming. So if it's adequate or not. Moving on, got a few more minutes to go. So number 13 is encryption. So file encryption is a method of encoding data in order to transfer files securely. That's pretty much it. So encrypting files helps to prevent tampering or unauthorized access while files are in transit and at rest. So files on devices, you got your BitLocker, which is or any sort of good antivirus that helps. You need to ensure that your applications use encryption, like TLS, like Microsoft Teams. Everything is done. That's done through 365. Has that level of encryption, which is great. So probably one to talk with your IT provider or IT delegate to get a deeper understanding of what's going on here and what encryption you've got in place. Second last one on the home stretch. So we've got cloud backups. So our stance is backup local and backup to the cloud. Test your backups often. So why every business needs cloud backups? So separate, secured data in case of a cyber attack. It's scalable. So you can depending on the amount of data your business creates, any particular cloud can grow with that side of that data increase. The flexibility of it is pretty awesome. So data mirroring and quick restorations in times of a disaster. For example, if someone's server decides to blow up, if you've got some 10 on site. So you need to think about what you've got in place right now. If you don't know, I would have a chat with your IT partner or IT delegate. So we've had a number of clients over the years that have continued with, say, like tape backups locally, only, and they weren't much help when their factory burnt down. I'll tell you that. They generally wish they had cloud backups at that point. This was a few years ago. Now that's obviously an extreme case. However, we've had like burst pipes above a server room in a client's CBD office. That was only a couple of years ago. There's general server hardware failure where you actually need some sort of good cloud backup that you can quickly restore to. So I would say cloud backups in 2022 is an absolute necessity. It's not a simply nice to have at the moment. And last one, number 15, we're all the way through, is cyber insurance. So if all else fails, protect your income and business with cyber damage and recovery insurance policies. So I wouldn't have a clue who your insurance brokers, but I would be having a chat about this or seeing what they would recommend for your particular business. It can be a conversation you have in partnership with your IT partner. Generally, you'd have to get your IT partner involved as well to understand what's in place in order for the insurance company to make a sound assessment of what's required. But yeah, from our experience, after talking with, like, say, half a dozen insurance brokers I've specifically spoken to on the North Shore this year, it's getting more difficult to obtain without first making sure various practices are implemented in your business. So cloud backups for disaster recovery process, MFA on your 365, Xero, having internal password policies and the rest. So it is something that kind of helps get your house in order, which is great. So we have smashed through it. I think we're on time, 11:01. Yes, we're 1 minute over. I'm so sorry. But we are done. Hopefully that was informative for everyone. It was supposed to be a short, sharp webinar with 1 or 2 takeaways for everyone. Thank you very much, Kurt, for joining us as well and sharing some pearls of wisdom with us. So to the team that are on the call, if you've got any further questions, the team at IT360 or the person who's invited you to this webinar, I'm sure would be able to answer any of your questions or direct you to someone that can help further. Kurt and myself will actually stay on the call if anyone wants to have a quick generic conversation about anything now. As for the rest of us, thank you for joining us. Stay safe and have a great rest of your week. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Cal. That was awesome.
Too easy.
You've got that down to a fine art now, haven't you? For anyone who's on the Taranaki team, we're actually in conversations with an insurance broker in town. So let us know if you want to have a chat, and we can make introductions.
Did I mention that figure? The insurance companies.
Oh, yeah.
31% of breaches with insurance companies and brokers.
Wow. Yeah, the team we've been working with, they actually got quite a good score with their cybersecurity assessment. A few items for them to work on, but one was the awareness training, which they did informally, but they decided that they would like a more formal approach. So been helping them out with that. That's been pretty cool. Another thing that often comes up is around the encryption stuff. It's actually potentially a privacy breach risk as well. So not only do you know if